Good evening. My name is Shay Wright, and I'm doing my presentation for PAD 747. My presentation is going to be on crime mapping. My presentation will explore crime mapping and its effect on government, criminal justice, and public administration. In order to do this, what I did was I looked at a history of crime mapping, I looked at how crime mapping is done, and then I looked at its application in these three areas. The use of crime mapping to identify hotspots has evolved over the years and has been used in various and creative ways, identifying high crime areas and times on college campuses, assessing the impact of crime mapping policies in Colombia, and even assessing patterns of terrorist incidents are just a few ways that crime mapping can be used. Crime mapping is more than the simple identification of where crime occurs, but it is also the basis for much more complex systems such as CompStat. This is a combining of the intelligence gathered from crime mapping with resources and personnel to combat current and future crime. So, crime mapping and hotspot mapping are interchangeably used at times, so they may be used interchangeably during this presentation. The concept of crime mapping is to take current or even past crime statistics, map them, and use them to predict where crime will occur in the future. It's not only for prediction of crime, but it's also for use of current time intelligence in order to allocate resources to areas that may need them. The start of crime mapping, pins in a map in a police precinct, has grown to many acronyms, computer programs, countries, and areas of interest. This technique is not only used in the United States, but as stated earlier in Colombia and in the United Kingdom as well. And many other states and countries use either some form of crime mapping from CompStat to a CompStat-like program. The ability to predict crime will not only keep the community as a whole safe, but also the individuals that are being victimized. So where does crime mapping come from? Crime mapping, as stated before, in its most basic form, is pins in a map in a police precinct. 70 feet of map in one room in a police precinct, and many officers and detectives trying to figure out what's going on and where. Thank you to the computer age for allowing us to see that this can all be handled in a much smaller venue, and the information gathered is much easier to process and analyze. In the recent years, the use of crime mapping has increased. Actually, about 20 years ago, the use of crime mapping has increased. The only place where crime mapping is not really relative is in smaller precincts of less than 50 to 100 police officers. And that's because usually their areas are small and condensed, and therefore they already know what's going on in the area, and crime mapping doesn't really have a basis there. So, what exactly is the basis of crime mapping? Well, one of the things that make up crime mapping is a geographic information system. And what that basically does is it takes different parts of what you would look at as a map and puts them together. So, for